The first thing when we had landed, I remember walking out of the airplane and just feeling like I had hit like a wall of water. It was so humid. I couldn't believe how humid it was. I was like, wow, okay. And it's that great feeling where you don't have to put on lotion on your hands because it's so humid, you know? But then your hair gets frizzy and then you don't like it as much anymore. But I remember that was probably one of my very first impressions of Peru. I have had the blessing to go to a third world country before with my family, so I feel like the initial third world country shock wasn't as big as a shock for me, because I've spent time with a lot of my family out in Colombia before, and so I've seen what the lifestyle is like, but it was beautiful just to kind of walk back into, I don't know, into Peru, into South America. I think it's beautiful to me because it's half of me is, you know, my Colombian mother. It's the South America culture. I've grown up very biculturally, and so it just made me happy to be there and just to get to understand and to learn and to be a part of more of that side of my family, of that culture. So anyways, I guess those are probably some of the initial thoughts. I do remember probably about my second or third night in the MTC. At first it was super fun, and then it was like an EFY on steroids. That's what it felt like to me, you know, one of those youth programs on steroids. And then it hit me like about the third or fourth night. I just remember laying down in my bed and just looking up at the ceiling and thinking, I'm not going home for a really long time. I'm going to be here for a really long time. And it just kind of hit me that I was just starting a whole new journey. So anyways, those are probably some of my first initial thoughts going to Peru.
I remember, because I went with one guy from my MTC district. We arrived in Lima, and that was the first culture shock, because Peru is so much different than the United States. I remember getting there, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and we went to a hotel in the middle of nowhere, slept for like 3 hours, and got on a plane, went to Cusco the next day. We were completely so tired, so drained. I remember getting to Cusco, and everything, all these dirt roads, there's trash in the street, all these like different, everything's so different. And I remember getting there, and I was like, wow, I'm really gonna be here for 2 years. It was really surprising. It was a little hard to take the beginning, but I mean, everyone gets used to it. And then I remember we went and met our mission president once we got there, and it was really hard to talk to him because he only spoke Spanish. So when he'd interview us, like I didn't understand what he was saying to me, and he didn't understand what I was saying to him. So it was kind of that communication barrier. And so it was a really big culture shock at the beginning. Now it'd be different, I think, with my mission president, because my mission president changed, and so he's North American now. But it was just such a big culture shock at the beginning, I think, because I didn't no idea what Peru looked like either. So when I got there, it was all different. I had no idea what to expect. And then after that, that same day when we got there, they put us on a bus that night and sent us to our areas. So it was like a lot of big changes really fast. Like within 24 hours, I was in Lima, Cusco, and then to my first area. And so there's a lot of culture shock. It was really fast. I remember they gave us, in that first week, like when we got to our area, they gave us an opportunity to write our families at the beginning. And I remember just writing them. I was kind of distraught, a little worried. And I remember just writing them that first time, and all my worries kind of just went away. They kind of comforted me, and I knew I was going to be all right, and I was where I was supposed to be. And it's kind of just within that first week. The first few days were kind of hard, then I made it to Sunday. And then once it was Sunday, I went to church. And like you just feel the spirit, and then it was kind of all uphill from there. Or not uphill, I mean like better. After those first few days, then you get to church, and like you feel the spirit, and I was all right. But I mean, the spirit speaks any language, so I think that helped the most.
I remember that morning distinctly. I said goodbye to my companion. I was the only gringa, the only white girl entering the mission at the time. There were 3 other Latina sisters, but I didn't really understand them. And so, and then there were a bunch of elders. There were like 10 elders that were North Americans as well. And then there were like 20 Latin elders. And so we were just this huge group, and they had us line up outside the MTC. Well, the Peruvian MTC, and our mission president came and like at 6 in the morning and like shook all our hands and knew our names and introduced himself, and it was President Doris at the time. So, but he's gone. Now it's President Archibald. So the first day, so we went and we had a little training for the new missionaries, and then it was transfers. And you go through and they like pair you up with your trainer. There's like a PowerPoint that they do and put your face with someone else's face, and that's your trainer. And so my trainer was a Peruvian girl who was about 4 months away from ending her mission. And it was the first time that she had trained, and everyone knew that I was coming. The whole mission knew, because they hadn't had a lot of sisters entering in, and so everyone thought that I was going to be 19. But I'm like, surprise, I'm 21. And so, but it was just funny. So we opened an area when we started, and so we started without any investigators. We fortunately had a place to live. So I just remember the first 3 days, we were just walking around the area, contacting people, knocking on doors, talking to people in the streets, which was really incredible. It was so incredible, because something that I realized quickly, that as I bore my testimony in like every situation possible, I felt the Spirit. And I could speak Spanish better. It was awesome. I loved it. I remember just like looking up and seeing these, because Lima West it's a lot of poverty. And so there are some richer areas, but it's all still poverty. But I just remember like looking up at these tall buildings, and they're tall, but they're not like skyscrapers. They're just these tall brick buildings that only has like the front part painted. And I just remember like looking up at them and feeling so completely lost, but then just like this deep assurance that I knew people were praying for me and that it was all going to be okay.
To be honest, it's all a blur. I just felt tired. Now, Peru does have an MTC, and so a lot of people don't know that if they still do it now. I don't know if they do, but we only spent about 4 weeks in the Provo MTC, and then they shipped us off to Lima to the Peru MTC for about 6 weeks. And so all that happened in a longer period of time between arriving, getting accustomed to Peruvian food, and all of that jazz. So first arriving, to be honest, I got sick. I got sick right before we left to Peru, and so the plane ride was not very good for me. I arrived to Peru sick, and then when we got to the MTC, I felt a little better, but it was probably just nerves and being tired and getting used to the climate. But I got so sick that the Peru MTC's president had to give me a blessing, and that was an interesting experience. But when you arrive in Peru, just relax and take it all in. I think don't try to focus on the language. Don't try to focus on anything. Just go with the flow, and I think it'll just naturally come to you if you have faith that the language will come to you, assuming that you're putting your part in. It'll come. And so the Peru MTC was a great experience. Just again to get accustomed to the culture and the language and all of that jazz. And then it just seemed like a blur when we woke up that morning and they shipped us off to the mission office. We met our president, and he said, "Let's go to work." And we met our companions, and then we walked outside, took a taxi, and went straight to our little apartment there. And literally, like, I didn't even unpack. We had a meeting we had to get to with an investigator, and I remember showing up in this little like adobe house, like going from within 24 hours, going from a really nice MTC with all you can eat, whatever food and commodities you can have, to this adobe hut, and with like 2 chairs and dirt floors, and it was just, I really have no idea what I was thinking. Like this is just a culture shock. So between not really understanding the language, the culture shock, and me being extremely tired, it was just all a blur. In fact, I remember coming home that night. My companion wanted me to offer the prayer before we got into bed, and I remember saying the prayer, and midway through I just took a pause to think about what I was going to say, and next thing I know, my companion nudges me and was like, "Elder?" I fell asleep in the prayer. Like saying the prayer, I fell asleep. I was so tired. And I was like, oh, finished the prayer and then went to bed, and the rest is history. So that's kind of it, that experience there.